The pumpkin pickers put the pressure on early, although a shocking pass from Clint Perry should have been cleaned up. But quick hands from Mark Blundell to Adrian Bolton saw the Spees to take off through a huge gap, and he crossed under the post without a finger being laid on him. It took the Prices to get the Rosellas on the right track. Tony to Greg in the switch of play, and Greg's pass found fullback Greg West steaming onto the ball, and he reached out to score. Tony Price proved his value with orchestrating West's next try. On to Neil Baker, and Baker's super ball was gleefully accepted by West, and he scored number 2. Maitland hit back with a beauty. Roland Whitby's huge bomb hung in the air, allowing Bolton to knock the ball back for the Blacks. Blundell out to Lee Ernst, who again hoisted the ball skyward. A stack of players leapt for the ball. West made the blue, and Blundell scored. But you could sense the inevitable, and the Rosellas stamped their mark on the match when Price again was involved. His short pass to Hode on the boil, and the Maitland defence fell apart, and the second rower strolled over for an easy 4 points to set the leaders on the road to victory. In an all-Tamworth battle, City in the black and white were just a little too strong for Pirates, 12 points to 6. Tamworth had plenty of players out due to representative duties and played 10-man rugby to frustrate Pirates, who at times were their own worst enemy, with a lot of drop ball in non-pressure situations. The match was a trialless affair, with Tamworth kicking 4 penalty goals to Pirates 2. In other matches, Moree shaded Barraba 16-9, Narrabri flogged Inverell, and in a real surprise, not in the result but the scoreline, Corindai won the local derby 38-3. Central Charlestown put the pressure on early, and it paid handsomely when big front rower Terry Pastamoglu made a barging run towards the line. From the play of the ball, Captain Warren Shillings used brute strength to force his way over for a half-time lead of 4-0. And the Butcher boys continued to impress everyone, and smart 5'8" Phil Christensen scored a beauty. From Shillings to Christensen, who chip-kicked the South's defence who had moved up quickly. He regathered and sprinted away after a step off the left to score under the posts. But you can't keep a good side down, and the Lions roared late in the game. Butler's great pass to Kim Heater, and he scored near the uprights for a South's hard-fought win.
"22-year-old Owen Roberts does more than sing for just his supper. For the past 6 years, he's relied on busking for a living. But Owen reckons his efforts to drum up business in the Newcastle Mall have been all but muffled by council imposing a maze of restrictions.
Well, I used to be completely self-employed by busking, not on the dole or anything like that, but now I am, thanks to the Newcastle City Council.
Owen's lost count of the number of times he's been sent on his way by council ordnance officers, and he claims his attempts to obtain a busking permit have fallen on deaf ears. So to try to get a hearing, Owen is attending tomorrow night's council meeting and treating the aldermanic audience to a song.
Waltzing Matilda.
Why is that?
Because Waltzing Matilda is about freedom, and that's what they're not allowing me to have, freedom of speech.
A council officer says rather than make a song and dance in the chamber, Owen should discuss with officials how he can take his music to the people. Scott Bevan, NBN News.
Newcastle's coastline and port have been spared dramatic oil spills, but nuisance pollution has occurred. The most likely culprits, international vessels illegally pumping out their bilges before sailing away undetected. Over the past 18 months, the MSB Ports Authority has begun taking samples of oil from all vessels entering the port. The samples, taken from the ship's main oil storage and from the bilge, provide 2 unique records for scientific comparison with any slicks which may turn up in future. The molecular makeup of each oil sample is slightly different from ship to ship, providing a chemical fingerprint of the vessel. And the MSB says the system is working.
Oh yes, there's definite evidence. There's no oil being washed up on the beaches. Within the harbour, it's a very clean harbour at the moment. It's working thoroughly, yeah.
The result also suggests that much of our coastal pollution is no accident, but the deliberate work of illegal dumpers. But our vessels now just waiting till they reach uncontrolled waters to discharge their pollutants.
I hope not, but the procedures taken here, I hope, are taken in different other ports.
So far, Newcastle is the only port operating the system, but officials say recent oil spills around the Australian coast have made other ports take a closer look. Tom Hilston, NBN News.
He's left the rails, he's shifting his ground a little bit. He's two in front of Sprightly Jet. Facile on the outside is starting to chase this leader. Surtees in front, leads by 2 lengths on Facile. He's going strongly, Surtee puts the whip on him, and away he goes. Surtee by G, looks good at the end. Surtee too good in the run to the line, wins by 4 lengths. Facile second, tied for third, Sprightly Jet. In a photo with Seattle Swing and Bribel, then Emeralds.
Race to the lead on the home turn, and Milagro went to the front from Dig for Gold, issuing the challenge on the outside. It might be Dig for Gia. Dig for Gold ran to the front. Milagro fights back. Here's True Tales down the outside with a flashing finish. True Tales coming at Dig for Gold. Milagro can't go on. True Tales has hit the front close to home from Dig for Gold, and it's a boil over in the Alice Springs Cup. True Tales has won it from Dig for Gold.
At 14, Trudy is one of Newcastle's brightest stars and also one of Australia's best. Her selection in the 6-member Australian 16 and under overseas touring team gives credence to that. Last week at the National Secondary Schools Challenge event, Trudy won the girls' singles championship, beating people up to 3 years a senior. The left-hander started when she was 6, playing her first competition game that same year, 1984. Now she's ranked among the country's top 16 and under girls. In talking to Trudy, the reason why she's achieved this becomes obvious.
I'm pretty quick around the court and I concentrate fairly well, but I rely on my backhand a fair bit too.
Trudy also acknowledges her faults and realises it's a hard grind to the top. She believes she has the dedication, but is choosing to take the journey one step at a time. That begins on Saturday when she flies out to Manila in Italy with the Australian team on her first overseas tennis trip.
Biospecialties is the only company in Australia which produces ephedrine, an ingredient in cough medicine. Parent company ICI had noted a huge potential market, hoping to supply up to 20% of the world's needs. But the latest high-tech machinery used to produce the product proved to be temperamental, costing far too much money to maintain.
We know how to fix the problems, but the cost of doing it is so great that in an increasingly competitive marketplace, the whole project now has become commercially unviable.
Biospecialties was set up in 1989 at a capital outlay of $38 million. The plant will be now mothballed while ICI try and find some alternative uses for the machinery. 50 jobs will go over the next 3 months as services are wound down. 30 contractors will also be affected. Told of the decision early this morning, staff was said to be shocked.
We have an excellent team here at Mayfield, and they've really put a big effort into starting up this plant. It's been a new venture, and we're all extremely disappointed that a good business opportunity has been lost.
And at Muswellbrook, 30 people have been stood down from the Mirrabooka Meats Abattoir. The company blames the rural downturn for its problems, but hopes to restructure its finances and reopen within a month. Peter Ryan, NBN News. This is where the Cooperative Research Centre for Viticulture will do most of its homework, studying how to make Aussie wines more palatable.
We're looking at producing a cleaner product, a high quality grape. We'll be focusing very much on quality rather than quantity of production, and we're focusing very much on the export markets.
At Pecolbin today, growers were told about the program which looks at grape growth, disease, pesticide and salinity residues. The Hunter Valley is one of many wine centres that will join the Department of Agriculture's 7-year study. Last season was a tough one for local producers, with the worst drought in 45 years. Now vignerons are looking ahead, diversifying with grape varieties and seeking new markets.
For instance, Sauvignon Blanc and Merlot, Verdelho, Cabernet Franc, these are all new varieties to the Hunter Valley and certainly having an impact on the consumer.
The Australian Army is testing its anti-aircraft weapons in a fortnight of war games against fighter aircraft from RAF Base Williamtown. The 16 Air Defence Regiment has travelled from its base in South Australia to defend the old Nabiac runway with state-of-the-art Rapier missile systems.
Modern aircraft is able to carry quite an awesome packet of weapon systems and deliver them very accurately. A missile system that is capable of engaging that aircraft before it delivers its weapon load is crucial.
About 150 personnel, including technical and administrative staff, are taking part in the exercise. The defence systems will be available for closer scrutiny tomorrow when the Army lowers its guard for a series of inspections by local school groups. Tom Hilston, NBN News.
A recent meeting of the Academy decided that membership of the full board, the location of the administrative unit and the sports to be involved needs to be finalised. Board member Chris Kiley says a submission to the Department of Sport for funding will be sent to Minister George Souris once support for each of the areas is determined.
In finalising these details, we'll have that concrete evidence of the level of support for the Academy, and that will probably go back to Sydney around in July sometime, and we would expect to hear some positive announcement shortly thereafter.
The Board of Directors will be finalised first, with applications closing at the end of the month. The board will then determine where the administrative unit is to be based and what sports will be supported.
The important thing for sports to remember is that what we can do is very much dependent on the amount of funds that we have available. So in the early stages of the Academy, we're perhaps looking to accommodate maybe two to four sports. But then as more funds became available and the Academy develops an image for itself and a name, we hopefully will be able to take on more sport.
Mr Kiley says it's hoped the Academy will be running by the end of the year.
Following on from that, the important thing to remember is that people will be able to see some results, hopefully, or maybe not at the end of this year. Certainly these things do take time, but we need to identify talented athletes in the area, give them access to top coaching, residential training programs, all those sort of programs that are necessary to develop them to their full competency in whatever their sport might be, and hopefully not too long thereafter we'll see some results on the field, and certainly it'll be great for the Northern Inland area.
The so-called ceasefire began after another chaotic day in Sarajevo. Bombs were falling nearby as a negotiator arrived from the United Nations. Inside, Bosnian fighters agreed to a truce with the Yugoslav army as more bombs fell outside. Meantime, European observers have abandoned their peacekeeping efforts because the city has become too dangerous. Europe's busiest airport has been closed for 24 hours, the latest casualty of a pay campaign by Germany's public servants. Domestic and international flights were cancelled through Frankfurt, stranding hundreds of people. Garbage collection has also been affected. Unions are not satisfied with the scheduled pay rises, and rolling strikes have been underway for the last 9 days. In Japan, the sumo giants have given the little guys a chance to test their muscle. It was Children's Day, and the youngsters had a face-to-belly meeting with their heroes. Most were dispatched in seconds, until one boy who looked like a mini sumo. He flew into a bumping encounter with Hawaii's Konoshiki, 60 kilograms of determination versus 260 kilograms of wrestler. You might have guessed the result, but the boy could have a big future. As more people join the ranks of the unemployed, pleas for help from charities have risen. The Samaritan Foundation has had 3 times the number of calls for emergency relief since last year. Bishop Holland says the foundation requires an extra $200,000 to continue its work.
I want the Samaritans to be able to help disadvantaged people so that they're not put out of their homes, that they're able to pay their bills and they're able to put some food on their table.
The church chose the CES in Newcastle as the venue for the launch of Bishop Holland's Winter Appeal. In recent months, unemployment in the Hunter has risen from 9.3% to 12.5%. Organisations such as the Samaritan Foundation deal with the human cost of the recession.
We're really trying to meet their bills for education, for electricity, sometimes mortgage payments, in order to keep the family together and in order to keep them in their home.
The founder of the Josephite order, Mary MacKillop, was instrumental in bringing education to the New England area. St Joseph's Convent was built at Uralla in 1886, and Mary MacKillop often stayed there while she worked in the region. But Armidale's Bishop Manning feels unsure about supporting heritage groups who are attempting to have the convent restored.
I find it rather amusing now that some of our heritage people are trying to have the convent restored, which she would have visited when she came through here. I'm not too sure that Mother Mary, being a much more practical woman, would have wanted it restored.
Cardinals at the Vatican have voted to consider Mother MacKillop for veneration, and despite the red tape, it's almost certain she will be beatified to become Australia's first saint. Bishop Manning says Mary MacKillop is a worthy recipient of sainthood.
It's going to mean a great deal. Here we have a very ordinary person, seemingly so, but a person of sublime simplicity, a woman of determination, a person of determination, becoming a saint, being elevated to the position of sainthood.
The first ever Tamworth Cup was run in 1857, 4 years before the first Melbourne Cup. Racegoers certainly made the most of the event this year, donning their best race day outfits for the meeting. The carnival has $200,000 on offer in prize money, with the first feature race today, the 5th, the Aquila Still Breeders' Gift over 1,200 metres, and it was a boil-over. $20-1, $14-1 and $7-1, the umplay's favourite at 3, Sometime Lucky, and today wasn't it. But everyone was there for the $60,000 to his Tamworth Cup over 1,400 metres. $10-1, $14-1 and $9-2, the umplay's favourite at 7-2, Mocha.
Today, the kids at Lakeside Special School set aside a few moments to honour their mate. A new name in the art world is Ricky Lewis, at just 17, the winner of a Japanese art competition. His winning design, a Christmas card, complete with holly-munching koala, created on this printer. Churning out these cards has become a booming business. Ricky's was no mean feat. Consider the competition.
Hundreds throughout Australia, would have been thousands throughout the world.
First prize, a plaque. Ricky's already got a place for that.
Hang it up in the lounge room.
And $200, and that'll be poured into paints to keep the creative flair flowing. So, how's he feel? Well, we'll leave the last word with the artist.
Happy.
Harrigan copped plenty of hard knocks last Wednesday night while handing out a few himself, and he hasn't responded as quickly as he would have liked. The club took the step to rule him out for Sunday's vital clash against the Raiders.
He's got an infection in his elbow, he's got a little bit of a problem with his knee. I don't see a great need to push the point with Paul. Our club's performing very well in the top 2 grades. Anyone who fills the spot will do so well, and I don't believe it'll drastically affect the result of the game on Sunday.
David Boyd and Sam Stewart will share the front row duties in the absence of Harrigan, while crash-tackling David Mullane will come into the second row. Canberra have been hit harder than the Knights, losing Lock Bradley Clyde and 5/8 Laurie Daly, and Mal Meninga was hoping for a quiet spot out in the centres.
Yeah, and the forwards will be very physical. Hopefully I'll be picked in the backs and I'll be out wide, so hopefully to go okay. I've been playing the second row in 5/8 for the club for the last couple of weeks, but looking forward to playing back out in the centres again.
No luck for Big Mal, back to the second row to front Mullane and Marquardt. Stone comes in at lock and Phil Blake to 5/8 while Boyle moves to the centres. For coach Tim Sheens, it's time a few fringe players stood up to be counted.
We can't be always relying on having Laurie and Bradley and all our key people in. We've got to play well without those people as well and win some games with everyone else playing to their potential rather than waiting for other people to do the job.
The backyard of these 6 houses on Madison Drive have dropped away due to land slippage. A 7th house in Astor Street has also been affected. The properties are contained within a subdivision which was approved by Lake Macquarie City Council. In a statement of claim, the 7 owners alleged that prior to 1986, Lake Macquarie City Council became aware that the land forming the reserve had slipped, causing the hillside to become unstable. They claimed that the council failed to take any steps to stabilise the reserve, and consequently it later slipped again, causing damage to their properties. The residents want the council to stabilise the area and rectify the problem. They also want compensation. However, most of the proceedings today were concerned with legal argument. Lawyers for Lake Council are trying to have the case thrown out of court on the grounds that the council doesn't have a case to answer. They want the action to be summarily dismissed. The case will continue tomorrow.
The Hunter Community Legal Centre was officially opened by Justice and Consumer Affairs Minister Michael Tate. It offers free legal advice to the public and will be staffed by 2 full-time personnel, supported by a roster of voluntary solicitors. The centre will operate Monday to Thursday. Depending on demand, these hours may be extended in the future. The aim of the service is justice for all.
The advice of a lawyer is helpful at various times, particularly times of crisis, times of difficulty. And in that situation, I think we have to ensure that people, because of economic disadvantage, are not excluded from their rights to get that sort of legal advice.
According to State Legal Aid Director Mark Richardson, a recent survey highlighted a desperate need for the facility.
Of the 81,000 people in this area who had a legal problem in the past 12 months, only 52% of them went and sought some assistance.
The Newcastle-based centre will service Lake Macquarie, Port Stephens and the Upper and Lower Hunter. Staff, however, believe resources may be stretched further as this centre is the only one between Newcastle and Brisbane. Its priority will be dealing with domestic violence, but staff will also conduct legal education seminars and some casework. And across the city, but still in legal circles, Senator Tate also opened the newly established Faculty of Law at Newcastle University.
Mixed fortunes for the Falcons last weekend, a long road trip south for 1 win and 1 loss. When the Canberra game went into extra time, Falcons coach Tom Wisman thought his boys would go on with it, but
we didn't handle their full court pressure, and we had far too many turnovers, and defensively we didn't stay focused at the critical time of the ball game. So those are the things that we've got to work on.
The focus this afternoon was on training. On Friday, the Falcons head north for a showdown with the Brisbane Bullets. The Bullets have lost 4 on the trot. Newcastle's determined to extend that losing streak to 5. The odds favour the Falcons. Tom Wisman, though, isn't so sure.
They'll be back in and be as tough as ever. They're a team that everybody's picked to be in the playoffs, and they've been down, so that makes them even more dangerous.
Early this morning, they grappled with the difficult task of manoeuvring the cumbersome cargo from dock to deck. What you see here is $650,000 worth of delicate electrical equipment dangling in mid-air. And it's all bound for India, the giant Pipavav coal mine about 400 kilometres west of Calcutta, a joint venture between Coal India and the Australian government.
The 5 MVA substations that take power at 33,000 volt, convert it to 6,600 and then distribute it to the shovels and the drills, etc. around the mine site.
In winning the Indian contract, AMP Control beat 4 countries. It designed and built 8 of these, 3 will be sent later. Today, officials were anxious to make sure the 5 substations were secured in the bowels of the German ship Baltimore Apollo. After all, it's a long trip. 6 weeks shipping time. They say it'll be 3 months before the generators are on site in the Bihar province.
And then our fellows will fly over for the erection, supervision, commissioning and training of the people on site.
Anthony Griffiths, NBN News.
The bushwalker was winched out of rugged bushland at about 2:30 this afternoon, ending an ordeal which began this morning when the 38-year-old victim slipped and broke his leg. It had started out as a day-long hike for the team of 6 male and 4 female experienced bushwalkers in the Mount Yango National Park.
As soon as he broke his leg, we could see because part of the bones, it was just a clean cut, cut straight open. So we thought, okay, we'll get a stretcher and splintered his legs, splintered them together, and we thought, okay, we'll carry him out as far as we can by stretcher. Well, we had 4 people, four able-bodied men carrying the stretcher, and to get it over the rocks, I mean, our backs were giving out as well.
With Mr Ferret's condition worsening, they abandoned this strategy, trekking to a nearby private property to raise the alarm. Police and Westpac Rescue were on the scene within 25 minutes. Paramedics were winched down to assess the situation. An hour later, they, William and another fatigued walker were winched out. A tedious operation involving a 30-metre winch. Considering the isolation and the denseness of the terrain, rescuers say the man can consider himself very lucky, given another location and the scenario might have been different.
The fellow is lucky in a way because if the ravine had been very steep and the aircraft couldn't have got to him, it would have meant a lot longer before help was forthcoming to him.
Mr Ferret was flown to the John Hunter Hospital where he'll remain overnight. His condition is described as satisfactory. And the Westpac chopper was called to another job this evening, this time to retrieve a woman's body from the base of cliffs at Newcastle Beach. Police say there were no suspicious circumstances. Catherine Lamond, NBN News.